You like that?
Yeah, it's nice.
Thank you. Well, welcome into the Johnson City Small Business Podcast. We're all about connecting the folks of Johnson City to our small business owners here in our great little town. And I'm your host today, Ryan McKinney. Thanks for listening. Today, I get to welcome Maggie Kendall to the show. She's the founder and cooking instructor at Maggie Foodie here in Johnson City. So, Maggie, welcome in. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, right off the bat, because the word foodie is in your title,
Sure.
I've got to, and I'll tell you why I'm asking this question. Can you give me the definition of foodie?
Oh gosh, I've never been asked that question before. I would just say someone who, you don't even have to be someone who loves to cook, just someone who loves good food and everything that goes along with that, enjoying something new, the company around the table, trying out new restaurants. I think foodie is a pretty broad term.
Okay, well then you side with Sarah, my wife. Funny story in our family. About 6 years ago, we're sitting around the kitchen bar and we're hanging out with our dear friends Shane and Shelly Hutchison and Sarah and I.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about traveling, where we're going to go and where we're going to eat and things like that. And Sarah goes, "Oh yeah, we would love that place. I mean, we're foodies." And I kind of looked, I'm like, we predominantly love steak and like Brussels sprouts.
Right.
And we're not, because in my, I guess, definition of when I thought foodie, it was like, oh, escargot, and you're going to try all this. And we're not very exploratory when it comes to food. Yet, your definition,
right.
She was right. And we're obviously foodies.
Yeah,
so.
You like what you like, and that's okay.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah, I love it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. Before we talk about Maggie Foodie and your brand and your business,
sure,
kind of take folks back a little bit. Where you're from, where you grew up, that kind of a thing. Let people know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. We just recently celebrated 10 years in Johnson City, but I'm a Michigan native. So I moved here shortly after graduating from Michigan State University.
Where you were in the color guard.
Yes, I was. I was in the marching band. My whole family's been in the marching band. Okay. So it's special to us. I'm still a big Michigan State fan now, but I've loved being in Johnson City. So it was a good move for me. I initially moved to this area. I graduated, undergrad, wasn't really sure what I wanted to do at that point in my life. I think a lot of college students feel that. And I took an internship with a nonprofit, Appalachia Service Project, which is based here in Johnson City. Yep. And I had volunteered with them all through high school. I had worked for them in my summers in college. I knew I loved that. So I've always been someone who follows what I know and love. And so I came here for that reason. I loved the mountains and I loved their mission. So that brought me here.
Okay.
And, it was a great time. I worked for ASP for about 6-7 years with them, and it was good.
Tell folks, I know a little bit about ASP. Tell folks what ASP does and what kind of what you learned there and kind of what their mission is, and tell folks a little bit about them.
Yeah, so it's they do critical home repair for low-income families throughout the Central Appalachian region. So while headquartered here in Johnson City, they work in 5 states: Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, West Virginia, and North Carolina. And so I took an internship with them for a year. It led to a full-time position. I ended up getting my master's in social entrepreneurship while I was working with them, so I could continue to kind of learn, the business sort of side of doing good. And I eventually found myself doing development work, doing fundraising for them and events and program development. I helped develop a college volunteer program for them, and I got to kind of use that entrepreneurial skills that I learned to love while studying that for my master's. And it was really a good time. So I got to travel doing some fundraising events with them, and again, working here, getting to know the Johnson City community a bit more, and helped me really fall in love with this area. And I met my husband there too, so that's also very special to us.
That's
we he is also from Chicago, so although we're both from the Midwest, we actually met here in Johnson City working for ASP.
Well, we're just full of connecting folks from all over. And then they just fall in love in Johnson City, and then they fall in love with the town, and they end up staying here, which is cool.
Right.
Well, thanks for sharing that. So you said social entrepreneurship. Was that a master's degree?
Yeah, it was a master's degree. So I did it in about 2.5 years while I was working full time. So it was a tough, busy time in my life. So I like to stay busy, so it worked out just fine. Right. So I did that while I was working for ASP. I got that through Carson Newman in Jefferson City. So I did a little bit on-campus work, off-campus work. We're really flexible with the fact that I, needed to work full time while getting my master's. And I'm thankful for that because it helped me learn a lot. I've always loved doing good. I've always loved
Right.
that. I've always been interested in business development and starting businesses. And so that, part of getting that degree led me to starting my own business as well, just because I've always been interested in entrepreneurship.
Cool. And you also love to travel?
Love to travel. Yeah. So I started traveling. I put my first trip abroad when I was in high school to Europe and did 8 different countries
Wow.
then. So it's loved it. And then after that, I did a little bit of solo travel to visit some friends who were living abroad. And my husband and I have taken several trips. So before I turned 30, it was my goal to visit um, 6 continents. I wasn't going to include Antarctica in that. And we did it. So
Oh,
by
wow.
28, I visited 6 continents. So
Congratulations.
thanks. So love to travel. I've loved meeting and connecting with different people. Again, like I said, to explore types of food. I think all my
Yeah.
travels have been food inspired, and it's helped me just curate recipes and things like that
Sure.
just from things that I've experienced while traveling.
So Europe, Hong Kong, Ecuador, Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin.
Your your best food experience in one of these
Oh
6
gosh,
continents?
this is such a tough question. This is hard for me because
Yeah.
being a foodie, I love so much different kinds of food, but I have to say probably you mentioned Hong Kong, and that's the one I usually say because my sister and I took a 2-week trip to Southeast Asia, and we were in Hong Kong for a while, and just trying different dim sum dumplings
Yeah.
all over the city. That was one of the most fun things we did, and I think it means a lot to me. My sister's my best friend, so just having
Absolutely.
that trip. A lot of trips it's sometimes, it's great where you're going, but it's also the company you're with. And so that was just a really meaningful trip for me.
That's awesome. Best place to stay on your
Oh
travels?
gosh. Well, just in general,
Mhm.
we like to stay in a lot of Airbnbs and
Cool.
just try to stay
Yeah.
somewhere that feels a little more local. So I've done everything from hostels to some nicer hotels too, but I like the in between where you can
Mhm.
kind of feel like you get the vibe of where you're staying. So I've used a lot of Airbnb.
That's cool. Best beach around the world that you've been to? I'm
Mm.
just curious because we're beach people.
Yeah. See, I'm a beach person too. I love the water.
Yeah.
Trying to think of the best beach. My favorite, I guess, it's just the beach isn't necessarily as nice as like the water experience
Mhm.
around it. My husband and I were scuba divers, and so we
Oh,
like
yeah.
to be kind of involved in, we like to scuba dive and snorkel, and probably going to the Galapagos Islands off the coast of, it's
Okay.
part of Ecuador.
Yeah.
That's probably our favorite. I would say the beaches are a little sandy, rocky, but you can just, walk around, jump in the beach, and go snorkeling and see a sea turtle. I mean, it's
Right.
just it's pretty magical.
That's cool. So you study social entrepreneurship,
Mhm.
you start working with ASP,
Mhm.
and then you kind of merge into this world of starting your own business.
Mhm.
So tell us about your business, how you got from doing one thing to saying, you know what, I'm going to pivot right now and shift into this.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So as I mentioned, I've always been someone who follows what I know and love, and
Hmm.
I've always known and loved food, even from a very young age. I used to just make recipes. I used
Okay.
to take over my parents' kitchen and make restaurants, and me and my
Yep.
sister would, try to, make really tasty meals for our parents. And I started blogging about food kind of early and some, it's a really rough looking blog. I wish I could find my original one out there in college,
Yeah.
putting together some recipes and just sharing pictures of things I was eating.
Yeah.
And I've always loved food. I've kind of bounced back and forth between considering culinary school from time to time. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with that. If I wanted to actually work in a restaurant or just do something around food. With my nonprofit background and my education, I've kind of focused on like marketing and communications and just how I could combine that with food. And so I just took that, near the end of my time at ASP, I was blogging more about food, and I was getting really interested in doing cooking classes
Okay.
for folks. So I had taken, cooking classes in various places, locally and around the world. Not locally here, but here in the U.S. or
Mhm.
regionally. And I was thinking that there really wasn't a place for that here locally at the
Right.
time. I was, thinking about all the different activities I saw people doing, whether it was like, corporate groups wanting activities and friend groups and bachelorette parties and families wanting things like that. And I heard people always going to Asheville for something like that
Yep.
or Knoxville for something like that. And I was thinking, well, this is an area where we're getting people are very interested in food. We're getting great restaurants. Our farmers market's booming. People are interested in it. There's definitely a need, or it would be something that folks here would like. And so I started thinking about how I could do that here. And then a friend connected me with a farm out in Jonesboro, Serenity Knoll Farm. It's still out there. So I actually worked in late 2017, early 2018 with the farm's owner there. He had built a commercial kitchen he had ideas of using it for a venue space for weddings or for catering or for having an in-home baker, and hadn't really developed exactly what he wanted to do yet.
Sure.
And I just worked with him and talked to him about my ideas and how they lined up with his ideas. And from there, I built Serenity Knoll Cooking School, which we then launched early in 2018, and it's still going on today there. So, so when I started the cooking school, I really got to kind of be creative. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm very thankful for the farm's owner, David, who allowed me to be creative and kind of dive all into just creating my dream cooking class business out there. And I was fortunate enough with his help and just with the community being so supportive and excited about it that it took off pretty wildly right away. So we were doing
Right.
cooking classes out there almost every single day of the week. You know, I taught many classes, but I also reached out to other local chefs and bakers and foodies out there
Yeah.
who had a skill that wanted to teach classes as well for all ages, groups, skill levels. And we just had a blast doing it.
So
So
cool.
yeah.
And then where did Margie Foodie evolve from there?
Yeah. So the beginning of last year, obviously a lot of things changed for people. March of 2020.
Yeah.
I actually had our first daughter in February of 2020. So
Congratulations.
thank you very much. Right before the pandemic started.
Yeah.
And at the time it was going to be really hard for me to be all in. I mean, this working for the cooking school was a hands-on job every single day of the week. I mean, it was hard for me to take time off, so I just knew it wasn't something I could I wouldn't be the best person for that thriving business at that time, being a brand new mom. So I actually stepped down from being the director of it and took a step back, just doing some marketing and such for them, so I could be home with our daughter. And then everything changed, obviously, a month later when the pandemic hit, and they stopped doing cooking classes. And so I was starting to think at this time, well, I worked with them for a while to start doing some cooking classes virtually, and then from there, along with their blessing and just working with, getting some experience doing some of these virtual activities we started to do early in the pandemic time, that was really popular right away. I decided to just kind of go off on my own, so it would be more flexible with my family schedule.
Sure.
And start doing cooking classes virtually on my own. So, and I had been doing a food blog for a long time. And I just wanted to build it, out from that already. I had a following with my food blog, and I knew that I could use that to, and just some, people who had taken classes with me before here. And also just, since the pandemic started, people were following me for classes kind of all over who just knew me personally or through connections of friends. And I just thought it would be a good time to take, something that was not necessarily, expected, but try to, kind of use that as a way to provide the community with something that would be helpful and positive at the time for what people were, looking for.
Wasn't March 2020 is like, it's like pre-COVID and post-COVID, right? Everybody's talking about, well, we did this until March 2020, and then all of a sudden, right?
Now we do this.
For sure. From the perspective of your blog, ad-free recipes.
Yes.
Why is that important to you, and why is that important to your customers and your clients?
That's a great question, and it's something that became important to me early on when I started to do this. I never wanted to do it as a way to just inundate, just to recreate what everyone else has done. If you were to go online and you were to Google, I want a recipe for grilled chicken, you're going to find a thousand recipes for grilled chicken, but every single one of them, you're going to have to scroll through that particular blogger's background and why they love grilled chicken, and the time of day and the weather that made them inspired them to create this recipe, and ads and boxes you got to click out of when you're just looking to find what you need at the grocery store. I'm like, I just want to know what I need to buy before I go to Kroger today or whatever it is. So I wanted to create something that was more approachable for people. I wanted people to I just want people to fall in love with cooking in their own kitchen and feeling comfortable to try new things. And it's hard to do when there's all these obstacles in the way. So I just wanted to be straightforward with recipes that still, push people a little bit to try new things
Sure.
and just get creative, but not have to go through all the hoops of, just trying to navigate through what they need to find in order to do that, just narrowing that down. And so that was really important to me. So I've tried to find, and luckily I have some other avenues to sort of use my food blog as a means to monetize it. And so
Sure.
using this as a chance to kind of filter people who are fans of my recipes
Mhm.
into doing cooking classes was a great business strategy for me at the time.
Right. I think that eliminating friction is kind of what COVID and the last 2 years really have
For
taught
sure.
people is we can eliminate the friction of them getting to us or getting to our product or to our service.
Right.
Those are the businesses that I'm seeing, especially in Johnson City, that are thriving
For sure.
because it's taking the client and putting them at the center of every transaction that we have.
Hmm.
So what's your value proposition when you're talking to clients and they're like, oh yeah, like I mean, I could probably just do this on my own, or why do I need to take a cooking class? Or
Sure.
what's your value proposition? Why come into Margie Foodie and say, hey, I need a cooking instructor?
Sure. It's more about the experience than it is the food, to be honest. I mean, the food brings people together,
Yeah,
and that's true for any type of meal you're doing. I mean, everyone loves food, and it's a great, we all need nourishment, we all need to eat, but it's about the experience around it that I think that's what's most special to me. And that's what's always been most special to me about food. And I feel that way about these cooking classes, whether it's in person, and the same thing is true virtual. It helps connect people, which we all were looking for again
yeah,
in March 2020, and
right,
even now today,
absolutely,
beyond the pandemic, there's people who seek connection, who have friends across the country or across the globe, or family that can't get together, or groups, work teams that are spread
right,
out around the country with different offices. So people are looking for ways to connect and have experiences together. And so that's sort of what I market it as, where it's a chance for, it's supposed to be fun. And I tell people at the beginning of every class that I teach virtually, that I want them to make good food and enjoy it. That's part of it, but more than that, I want them to have a good time and
yeah,
feel comfortable and enjoy each other's company when they necessarily can't be together. So that's what it is. It's just a way to bring people together, um, to do something other than just chit chat. We all did Zoom happy hours and things like that with friends, but this is a way for groups to really come together, do something that's unifying, something
yeah.
they can discuss afterwards, and hopefully come away with it learning something too. But more importantly, just connecting with one another.
You're right. The experience, I'm thinking of we got my mom's who's a home economics major, right?
Hmm.
So try to compete with, making a pie at my house
Right,
versus making a pie at her house.
right,
The Betty Crocker
right,
cookbook.
right,
And yet that recipe is totally different at my house as opposed to when my kids are
right.
making it with her and the smell and the taste of the cookies coming off of her cookie tray
Mhm.
versus when we make them at our house. So
Right,
I
right,
buy into that.
right.
Absolutely. So what's kind of trending in your world? Maybe some technology stuff or where's the business kind of shifting toward?
Sure. There are a lot of virtual cooking class opportunities now.
Yep.
I see a lot of that where I'm pretty proud of the work we did at Serenity Knoll when I was still with them at the beginning of the pandemic, because we were kind of on the forefront of that. In fact, when you Googled Zoom cooking classes, we were about third on Google, which is
Wow.
pretty wonderful.
Yeah.
And so have been trying to think creatively how to kind of go with what people are doing and wanting, but still be unique enough for where what I do stands out amongst what people do. And so what's really trending right now is just seeing an opportunity and booking it and doing a cooking class on your own. But what I've wanted to do that's different than that is all of my experiences are private. So you come to me,
Mhm.
and then you recruit people instead of me saying like, oh, I'm going to be teaching how to make fresh pasta at on Saturday at 6, and you can sign up for it and pay individually. You actually reach out to me and you recruit people to be part of it, so everyone in your in your class
Yeah.
is you know them.
Together.
Right. You know them.
That's
It's you
cool.
can it's you don't feel uncomfortable to like have your camera on and be silly
Right. Yeah.
and chat with one another. So it's a private group. It's just people you know. And so you share the cost of the class. They can all you can all take breaks. I do like people have birthday parties and they'll stop and sing happy birthday and
Right.
do a cheers and stuff. And
So
so
cool.
it's very personal. So that's why I wanted to stand out. But really where I see people going is just um just doing more opportunities for virtual things for all different ages and different types of cuisine and as we slowly kind of return to doing some normal in-person stuff too, but still offering these virtual opportunities at the same time for folks who are either maybe uncomfortable doing in-person things or they just like I said COVID aside it's they want to connect with people who they can't always be in person with.
Sure. Speaking of one of those, I think if you're watching the social face pages or whatever live,
Mhm.
it'll be next Wednesday. So you're having like this opportunity for kids to
Yeah,
cook
yeah.
food around the world, right?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Where I'm teaching a virtual fall course for students who are still learning at home or homeschooled students. And we're cooking on Wednesdays at 11 o'clock in the
Right.
morning for about an hour. And every week we're going to focus on a different area of the world and a cuisine that correlates with that and cook something together. So I did this in the spring as well when there were still a lot of students at
Right.
home and we did a baking class where, when we did pies and we did cookies and we did babka breads and we did cheesecakes and all sorts of fun stuff. So they got to cook with me. I go along slowly with the kids, and they can ask me questions, and then at the end they have something to eat. And some kids did it on their own. Some
Sure.
younger kids would do it with their
Oh,
parents,
right.
and that's how this one will work too. So, I'm gonna run that course from September 15th through December 1st. Folks can join late if they're interested. You can
Okay.
find information on that on my website. But and then I'm hoping then next spring to actually bring this to doing on weekends and in person, hopefully again, because I love teaching. I love teaching everyone how to cook, but I really love watching kids get excited
They
about
do.
food. So it's my
Yep,
favorite.
they do, don't they?
They do.
That's cool. Your audience, your foodie audience knows babka bread, but I don't even know what that is. What is babka bread?
Oh gosh, it's like you've probably seen it before. It's like the bread that has like a braid or a twist, and it has like
Okay.
chocolate or
Yeah.
cinnamon or
Yeah.
something kind of
Oh,
in
wow.
or mixed with it. It's sweet bread.
Yeah.
It's a little bit fluffier.
Mhm.
It's got egg base in it, so it's good. And
That's
the kids love that. I mean, what kid doesn't love a bread with chocolate?
exactly. So recently you had a recipe go viral on TikTok.
Oh yeah,
I think 20,000 hearts and likes and
yeah. About a
bunch of
third
bunch of
billion views.
comments.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, your pans are old and you should never let olive oil go inside the oven. You know that, right?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
You get it's I've really enjoyed TikTok, but you get all sorts of comments.
Yes.
Everyone knows how the internet is. So
For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, Margie was on TikTok and she got some comments, right?
yeah,
Just kind of some
yeah,
ribbing in the side of like, you're not, your pans are old and that's not me saying that. That's a comment from
yeah,
her that you're not supposed to put olive oil in the oven is what another commenter said. And
yeah,
just,
yeah. Or I got a lot of hate for that recipe for the title of it because it was an Asiago
Asiago
bagel
bagel.
soup.
Right.
And it's the I like to think creatively with my recipes, and those
Absolutely.
are the recipes that usually get more traction and more
Right.
reviews. But for some reason, people had a hard time with the fact that I called it that without there being bagels actually in it. It's bagel inspired, not
Mhm.
necessarily. I don't know how you would put a bagel in a soup. It's supposed to
Right.
taste like that, but for everything that goes viral, there's always that, and I'm
That's right.
just gotta let it roll off your shoulders.
For our folks who, social media plays such a huge part in all of our lives, I
hmm
think, especially in this generation, especially for maybe some folks who are entrepreneurial minded. Um, how do you let that just kind of roll off your back and say, ugh, you know, like that's his comment, that's his perception, that's his opinion. Like, does it stick with you? How do you allow yourself to put out content
Sure.
and realize that some people aren't always going to love what you do or love what you say or love what you put out?
That's taken some time, because my
Hmm.
recipes are things that I've tested over and over again, and they're things that I've really mean a lot to me. And so, at first it would bother me a little bit, but at this point, I've just hit the point that, and it's not, and I feel this way about all food and recipes in general, that not everything is for everyone. And so if someone has an issue with, the way I called the name I have for the soup, they don't have to make it, and that's okay. And I'm not going to bother me.
Absolutely.
And I didn't make it for that person. I made it for anyone who might like it. And so, you just have to just let that roll off your shoulders. And that is just the way the internet is these days. There's just, if you look at anything, you're going to get someone with opposing views or having an issue with something, and you just have to stick to what you know and what you love. And you can't take the criticism. You just can't take it. You just got to let it go.
We got a couple young listeners too, and like so,
Sure.
thinking of your daughter as she grows up and having
Mhm.
that kind of mindset to her, and conveying that to her as social media eventually becomes a part of their world as
Sure.
young adults.
Sure.
Is there anything that you would be putting into her mind, or her thought process of there's always gonna be somebody out there that's gonna not necessarily want to be your best friend?
Sure. Yeah. And that's such a important thing right now. I think, 'cause social media is just such an intricate part of our lives. You can't avoid it. I just That's really that, being most important to us with raising both of our girls. We had another daughter. She's 8 weeks old today. So we'll have the challenge of raising two girls that
Yeah.
are within a year and a half old of each other. And so we're gonna have to deal with that a lot. Just
Yeah.
like just be true to what you value, what that your family and friends, they love and care about you as you are, and you can't let any of that get to you. You have to be positive and also be that person for other people as well, because there's some people who, might not take criticism as well, or they
Sure.
might feel, bullied or hurt or misunderstood. And, we want to raise girls who are going to be the people who make those people feel good.
Absolutely.
And that's really important to us.
It's a path I didn't think we would go down when we're talking about Margie
Yeah,
Foodie
yeah.
today,
Here
but
we go.
we kind of went there, and I thought it was interesting to kind of get your perspective on that. So,
Sure, sure.
well, that about wraps up our time together here today on the Johnson City Small Business Podcast. Thanks for investing your time with us. Where do people go to connect with you and learn about you and get connected to you and your business?
Yeah, so my website is margiefoodie.com. There you'll find my recipes, information on classes, and other opportunities. Then you can also follow me on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all at Margie Foodie. You'll find recipe videos, and I just love to get feedback on recipes and for people to share what they make. And so it's a great way to do that.
It's awesome. Well, I'd also like to thank you, the listener, for dropping into the show today. Please subscribe to the podcast if you like what we're doing here. And make sure to also check out Podcasting for Fun and Profit. It's hosted by Leighton Hart, our very own Leighton Hart here at Market Street Media, who's also our sound engineer, who's responsible for, once again, romancing your ears. Check that out. This is the Johnson City Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan McKinney. And until next time, keep living your life by design.